Well, this is it. The episode you've all been looking for. The very last of the series on this Super 2 barn find. So as you can see, we're going to go ahead and get these bodies painted and make these look like the concept version of the #1 Super 2 car. So got the stencils on. You've already watched that in the last episode. If you missed it, be sure to go back and watch it. You can see how we got those installed. These stencils are ones that I custom made. And so we put the tape on the outside just to make sure we don't get any overspray or anything on those. Here I'm just checking to make sure that those stencils are down and tight as we can get them. Now we're going to go ahead and shoot this blue on here. Remember that the stencils are a two-part process. So the first part is get this blue on, and then once it's tacked up, we'll pull the stencil off, and then we'll put the second stencil on, which is slightly smaller, and then remove the #1 stencils from the top and the two sides, and reveal those unpainted areas, and then shoot the white paint, which will give us our two-tone paint job. Now this is obviously trimmed and cut a significant amount. It takes quite a bit of time, but I didn't want to spend too much time showing you the process here of just spraying some paint. And then I did use a hairdryer to kind of help expedite the process. I used a water-based paint to get that done, so just do shoot lots of layers. It's kind of thin, and use a hairdryer to make it dry a little faster so we can speed things up even in real time. So now here we go, we're pulling this first stencil off, and you can see that the outline and the border there is beginning to show itself. And we'll just be very gentle not to pull the paint off the body. This is one of the reasons we Scotch-Brighted the chassis with the stencil on earlier, is because that little bit of texture goes a long way towards helping the paint actually stick to the clear coat. But we didn't want to Scotch-Brite everything because we don't want to make the part that's going to be transparent. We didn't want to make that dull. So that's why we put the stencils on earlier, or that first stencil on earlier, is to protect that area and space. So that way, once it's all finished, it's going to look really nice from the top. And hopefully you'll be able to see those pictures here very soon. So we're pulling off the #1s from the sides. Everything looks good there. We'll go ahead and remove this, just inspect everything. And that way we can work on the second stencil, putting it on, and do so unrestricted. The tape can sometimes get in the way and be a bit of a bear to deal with, so we'll just discard that. You notice I am painting two different bodies. My son has also asked me about this, and I mentioned this in an earlier video, and he wanted to get one of the same. I said, what better opportunity just to do two at one time, and that way he'll have his. He's been after me for over a year to do it. So now here you can see we're placing that second smaller stencil, slightly narrower than the last. You just want to take your time here. You can, peel them up, remove them, recenter them, square them up. So just take your time, work from the back to the front. And because you've already got that border, you know the rough width of the line you're shooting for. And so you don't necessarily have to work from the front where the cutout is for the air dam. Work from the back, get it square, and make sure that you've got a nice line. And then as you come forward, you just want to make sure that it's even margins on both sides for the front, so that way your stripe, once it's painted, will be nice and uniform to both sides. And you can see there, I'm just trying to rub this stencil down. These little air dams that are on the sides, they protrude down from the top, and they can be a bit tricky. The hair dryer's there is just to warm that decal and allow it to stretch good, hopefully not tearing it. These particular material that I'm using for these stencils does very, very well. But if you overheat it, then the glue won't stick. You have to let it kind of get back to a bit of a cool state excuse me, before you can before you can get it to stick. So don't overheat it, just enough to stretch it. Once you stretch it, go ahead and let it cool as you continue to work it into place. Now here, because that decal or that stencil is stretching, the bottom of the number one isn't perfectly squared off. So I take a piece of tape and just regular masking tape and square that off. And then now I am putting a little tape around the border of the front of the stencil because it won't get painted. You only have the stripe coming down each side, and there won't be any in the front near the air dam. So just to protect it, I'll put a little border of masking tape all the way around where the black stencil is touching the blue, and then I'll square off the front of it where the stripes will be eventually. I'll take the masking tape and run it parallel to make sure that the design, or how the white will end once it's painted, how it looks. So the stencil itself almost has a kind of a curvature to it where it will turn and wrap, and if you like that, stick with it if you order these stencils from me in the future. And for me, I was just trying to get as close to the factory design as possible. So rather than have that white, or in this case, what will be clear until it's painted, kind of turn and start to that round across the front, I wanted to cut it off. So I just took a piece of masking tape. You can see right here I'm doing it. I'm just following the perimeter of the mask and just evening that up, make it exactly the same, and then just extending it straight out towards the front, and that will cut that paint off when we go to shoot the white color. Here's just an extra precautionary piece. If you were to paint it like I just had it with those little small pieces, you're going to see that perimeter of white. In this case, I just wanted it to be nice and smooth and straight, so I just took this piece of tape. That way it covers up any white from getting on that section, and then just make a nice smooth straight edge on both sides. This is more of aesthetics. It really doesn't apply to the paint job or the paint scheme. So whatever is exposed here that you see on the body itself, it's going to turn white. Now that we've got that done, we can put this masking tape back on the outside of the bodies. Once again, it'll just protect the outside from any overspray. So that way our cleanup is very easy and simple. This doesn't have to be perfect. Plus it kind of gives you something to hang on to as you go to spray paint them. Got all that squared away. Now we can get some white paint in our paint gun here, and we'll give this a shot. Now this is my first use of this battery powered compact air sprayer. Seems to be doing okay. A couple more times I'll really get a good feel for it and how the paint needs to be mixed and thinned, etc. But it did pretty well with the blue. I think I was a little thin on the paint initially, but more coats made it turn out good. And the white was a little bit thicker, not quite as much reducer in the paint itself, so it seemed to cover a little bit better. You can see that paint doesn't stick to the stencil at all. It just kind of beads up on it. And here I'm setting up my hairdryer again. That way we can kind of expedite the process as we go through it. Just warm up that material, warm up the paint. It'll dry a little faster. That way we can get the coats on a little quicker. Just be sure to paint the sides. Don't forget that there are number ones on each side. You're not just painting the surface, the top surface of the body. You don't want to get to the end and then your ones be transparent because you didn't get enough paint on there. So that's pretty important. Hey, I just want to take this time while we're painting these to acknowledge some of the folks making comments. I really appreciate that. I love the feedback. There was something I had been pronouncing the plastic material made up on the Super 2. I've been pronouncing that incorrectly. I was calling it Derlin, and it's not. It's Delrin. So I appreciate the catch on that and getting me straight on it. And yeah, anytime you notice something that's not quite right, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, just trying to educate myself on these things, and I've only been fooling with them for a little over a year, so appreciate that. And then also too, there were some questions about the top gear on the armature. So every one that I've ever seen new in a package has been a silver top gear mounted to the top of the armature. I've actually got a couple new armatures still in the blister packs that were pre-mounted, and then some replacement armatures that came with the gear, and they were all silver. Never seen any brass ones, although I've seen plenty of used cars for sale on the internet and other places that did have a brass gear on it, and I think it was pretty common that they would just find another gear, whatever color that might be. Most available to folks were the brass gears, and so they would just put that on there just to get it locked down tight again. I've even seen it where it would actually wear away at the shaft, and so you have to kind of be careful of that, and may even require shaft replacement and rewinding of the armatures. So here we go, back to the paint on the bodies. So we're peeling that off, and you can see how putting the mask on the front left this little blue area in the front, which is a lot cleaner than just having a tape line around it. So that's why I do that. And at the end there, I did shoot a coat of a clear coat on it just to help protect it, rather than just have the paint exposed. So I put that on there. Of course, you didn't see anything change, probably just looked white to you while it was being sprayed on, but there's a nice thin coat of clear coat on the underneath side just to give it a little added protection. They look pretty good. They look identical, as they should. So pretty happy with the way they turned out. And we'll just set one of these off to the side for my son, and we'll let him finish up his own in just a second. But before we do that, let's get it cleaned up. So that masking tape is pretty sticky. Sometimes it'll leave a little residue. So we're just taking a gentle cleaner, going around it and making sure we get all of that off of there. And that way it'll be nice and pretty and ready to go. I just use airbrush cleaner. You can buy that at the local Hobby Lobby or whatever. I just happen to have it. It's pretty soft. It's not aggressive, and it won't hurt the plastic. So I just use that to kind of clean up everything, make sure there's no sticky residue on it, and it works very well. If you use too harsh of a chemical, you'll actually take a chance on dulling the clear body. Here's a little bit of a close-up, and you can see how it turned out. I'm pretty happy with that. And this color is custom mix, so you can't buy it at the store. I've got 15 years in automotive body paint repair, so I went after this particular color. I have another one, the one that I had mentioned some videos ago, that I had done for myself. That's part of my collection, and this color matches it nearly identical. So I went with that same color scheme. So now that we've set his off to the side, it's time to finish this thing up. So we're going to put the cockpit man on here, and this is an original AFX Aurora cockpit. It's not a reproduction item. So I just use a bit of hot glue on there, and you can take it back off if you want to. I don't go excessive on the hot glue because you take a chance on warping the body. Just a small little dab, smaller than the size of a green pea. Has always worked for me. So let's go ahead and get it mounted to the body, see what it looks like as a complete package, 100% done. These little pins can be a devil, so we did chop out some of the aggravation of that. Now let's take a close-up. So yeah, it looks pretty close. It's not perfect, but then again, who's ever seen a real one in person? I've seen a bunch of copycats. replicas and tributes, but I think this one turned out really good. I think what I might do is set a yellow one beside it to kind of show you a bit of difference between the two. But before we do that, let's take a close-up. You can kind of get a good shot of both sides, and I really love the way you can see straight down through the body and see all the mechanics of the car. To me, it's one of the coolest designs. Must have been very difficult for them to figure out how to do the paint scheme. Probably one of the reasons that we never saw them in production, where you only saw the yellow and the red. And certainly by the time that the Magna Traction cars had come out, these things were getting obsolete. They just didn't handle and go as fast, but the motors were still awesome and were used in, of course, all other types of cars. Another great thing, I love the way that the body kicks up like this, and you can have it sitting up if you want to. Paint's on the inside, so you're not going to scratch it, which is wonderful. But there's some really good shots of everything all together. Just being super gentle not to drop this thing off of the track. I think it turned out pretty awesome. Be sure to leave your comments in the description. Be sure to follow the page. I'm sure there'll be other things we'll work on. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the little notification on there. That way when new things come out, you'll see them. So you'll notice that the color in the blue is slightly different than the card. But if you also notice, this is an original yellow Super 2 body. And how different it is as well. It's considerably darker on this little card, which the card will come with the package. So that's why the body on the blue is lighter. Here it is all together. I've got a tribute box that'll come with it. You've probably seen some sell on Fleabay here and there, but it's really nice. I figured, hey, the car this nice and this unique, it needed its own box. I'm going to list this on eBay. I'm also going to put it on Marketplace. However, the Marketplace I'm still trying to figure out. Again, really appreciate you watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit the little bell, and that way you'll get notified on the new videos. Thank you.